The music was loud enough to drown out my thoughts, but not my instincts. I remember standing at the edge of the living room, the soft glow of chandelier lights spilling over laughter, champagne glasses, and faces I barely knew. My heart shouldn't have been racing. I was just late to a company party. My wife, Emily, had insisted I join her after work. But the moment I stepped inside, something in the air changed. Maybe it was the way people's laughter faltered when they noticed me. Maybe it was the faint, nervous hush that replaced it. Or maybe it was because I saw her, my wife, sitting on another man's lap, her hand draped casually over his shoulder, her head tilted back in laughter. For a moment I thought I was hallucinating, that maybe I'd mistaken her for someone else. But no, her dress, that deep green one I bought her for her birthday, shimmered under the lights exactly the way I remembered. Her hair was pinned the same way I'd admired earlier that morning. It was Emily, and she was sitting on Daniel's lap. Daniel, her work friend. The man whose name had started appearing in stories she told about late nights and office deadlines. I didn't say a word. The room around me blurred, the music turning hollow and distant. I didn't storm in, didn't shout or make a scene. I just stood there, frozen in a kind of silence that felt heavier than rage. Emily noticed me then. Her smile faltered, her posture stiffened, and for a brief second, the room's laughter seemed to choke on itself. "Michael," she said, her voice unsteady as she rose to her feet. You came." I nodded, my throat too tight to respond. Daniel stood up too, clearing his throat, his smirk fading into something like guilt or maybe annoyance. I looked at them both. Then I smiled. Not because I was fine. Not because I forgave her. But because something inside me had just broken, and there was a strange calm in the pieces. "Didn't want to miss the fun," I said quietly. My voice was steady, too steady. Emily's eyes darted nervously around, aware of the eyes watching us. "Michael, can we talk? Outside." I gestured toward the crowd. "No need to stop your fun. You look comfortable." Her lips parted, ready to speak, but I turned away before she could form an excuse. I walked straight to the bar and poured myself a drink. Whiskey. I'd quit drinking 3 years ago at her insistence, but right then, sobriety felt pointless. Behind me, whispers began to spread like wildfire. I could feel them on my skin. Pity. The awkward sympathy. The disbelief. But I didn't turn back. Not once. Outside, the night air hit me like a slap. The party's noise dulled to a faint hum behind the closed door. I stood under the porch light, staring at nothing, my hands trembling around the glass. I heard the door creak open behind me. "Michael, please," Emily's voice cracked. "It's not what it looked like." I let out a hollow laugh. "You were on his lap, Emily. That's a hard thing to misinterpret." She took a step closer, tears brimming in her eyes. "We were just joking around. I had too much to drink. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything," I repeated, my voice low. Funny how that phrase can burn more than the truth. "Please," she whispered, her hand reaching out. "Let's go home and talk." "Not here." I stared at her hand, the same hand I once held when she said she'd never break my trust. "You know," I said softly, "when you called Daniel your work friend, I believed you. Every late night, every missed dinner, I told myself it was just work. That I was being paranoid." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "It was never supposed to." "To what?" I cut her off, my voice rising slightly. "To happen. Or to get caught." She looked away, her silence answering for her. The door opened again. Daniel stepped out, trying to look composed, though his eyes betrayed him. "Michael, look, man to man, this was a misunderstanding. She was just drunk." I stared at him for a long moment, my calm so sharp it frightened even me. "Do yourself a favor, Daniel," I said coldly. "Don't call me man to man. You lost that right the second you touched her." He opened his mouth to reply, but I set my glass down, hard, and the sound made him flinch. "Go back inside," I said evenly. "Both of you." Emily's voice trembled. "Where are you going?" "Home," I said. To pack your things. That night, silence was the loudest sound in our house. She followed me home, begging me to listen, her sobs echoing through the hallway. I didn't shout. Didn't even cry. I just gathered her clothes, one folded piece at a time, and placed them in a suitcase. The more I did, the calmer I felt, like each folded shirt was another weight lifted off my chest. "Michael, please stop," she pleaded, gripping my arm. "It wasn't an affair. I swear to you." I looked at her then, not with anger but with something far worse, disappointment. "You think betrayal starts with a bed, Emily? Starts with secrets. With hiding messages. With letting someone else make you laugh the way I used to." Her breath hitched, guilt flickering across her face. "You crossed that line a long time ago," I said quietly. She sank to her knees, crying into her hands. "I made a mistake. I didn't know what I was doing." "No," I said, my voice trembling now. "You knew. You just didn't think I'd find out." The next morning, the sunlight spilling through the blinds felt cruel. Too bright, too normal for the wreckage it illuminated. Her suitcase sat by the door. She stood there, red-eyed, clutching a photo of us from our wedding. "Michael, please," she whispered one last time. "Don't let it end like this." I looked at her, and for a fleeting second, I wanted to forgive her. To believe her tears, to pretend the image of her on another man's lap wasn't burned into my brain. But some things once seen can never be unseen. "Emily," I said softly, "you ended it the moment you made me the fool in that room." She flinched, her lips quivering. I turned away before I could watch her break again. When the door closed behind her, the silence that followed wasn't peace. It was emptiness. Days turned into weeks. People at work whispered. Neighbors avoided the topic. Everyone wanted to know the details, but I didn't give them any. Because explaining it would mean reliving it, and I was done doing that. The house felt unfamiliar without her, like every room echoed with memories I didn't want anymore. The smell of her perfume lingered longer than I expected. It haunted the pillows, the curtains, even the air. One night, while cleaning the living room, I found her wedding ring on the coffee table. She must have taken it off before she left. I stared at it for a long time, the small band gleaming under the lamplight. That ring once meant forever. Now it was just metal. I didn't throw it away. I placed it in a drawer, quietly, like burying something sacred. Months later, she reached out. A message appeared on my phone. "I still think about you. I'm sorry for everything." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "I used to miss you. Now I just miss the man I was before you broke me." I never heard from her again. Sometimes I still replay that night in my head. The party, the laughter, the silence when I walked in. And every time I realize something. Betrayal doesn't destroy you in a single moment. It chips away slowly, until you wake up one day and realize the person you trusted most became the reason you can't trust at all. But I also learned something else. That silence, real silence, isn't weakness. It's power. It's the sound of someone choosing dignity over chaos. And that night, when I saw my wife on another man's lap, I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just acted. And in doing so, I finally set myself free.